Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. In Afghanistan, at least 23 people have been killed and 15 others wounded after 4 rockets hit a cattle market in Helmand province. In a statement, the provincial governor's office said the rockets fell at a market when hundreds of people were gathered there to trade sheep. The Taliban and the Afghan government have blamed each other for the attack. The UN has repeatedly called for a halt to the fighting and the start of the intra-Afghan peace talks as part of the Doha peace deal. Pakistan has thwarted a major terrorist attack on the stock exchange building in metropolis Karachi. Security officials say all 4 gunmen were killed in the response operation. Meanwhile, 3 others, including a police officer, were martyred during the gunfight. 7 people were wounded in the terrorist attack. Initial reports said 4 attackers came out of their vehicle and threw grenades and entered the building. Weapons and hand grenades have been recovered from the attackers. Meanwhile, Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa paid tributes to the security guards who sacrificed their lives in the incident. He said Pakistan will foil all the efforts aimed at destabilizing hard-earned peace achieved through sacrifices of the martyrs. In occupied Kashmir, Indian troops have martyred 3 more youths, raising this month's toll to nearly 50 so far. The occupation forces martyred civilians during a cordon and search operation in Runipura area of the district. The operation is going on. The authorities have suspended mobile internet services and blocked all exit and entry points of the area. The occupied valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communication blackout for the past 322 days. In India, police have revealed that 11 places of Muslim worship were damaged during February riots in northeast Delhi. In response to queries under the Right to Information Act, Delhi police said 8 mosques, 2 madrasas and 1 dargah were damaged in the riots. The police said 11 FIRs have been filed in connection with the attack on mosques, madrasas and dargahs. It said 31 people have been arrested, out of which 7 are released on bail and 4 charge sheets have been filed so far. The police said 2 FIRs have also been lodged and arrested 2 people in connection with the attack on 2 Hindu places of worship. The details provided by Delhi police are different from the figure given by the Delhi Waqf Board. According to the Waqf Board, 19 mosques were damaged during the riots. In Brazil, 552 more people have died from COVID-19, while over 30,000 cases have been recorded in the past 24 hours. The global number of deaths from the new coronavirus has exceeded 500,000, with the infections crossing 10 million. More in this report.
Latin America remains the hardest hit region from the coronavirus pandemic, reporting the highest number of deaths and cases every day. Meanwhile, the US is at risk of becoming the coronavirus epicenter again as cases surge in the south, with Texas reporting more than 5,000 cases every 24 hours. The US Health Secretary has called for a dire need for containment measures.
But the window is closing. We have to act, and people as individuals have to act responsibly. We need to social distance. We need to wear our face coverings if we're in settings where we can't social distance, particularly in these hot zones.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has called on the international community to consolidate its efforts instead of exchanging accusations in the fight against COVID-19. China continues to report new cases in double digits as it undergoes the second wave of coronavirus. South Korea is also planning to introduce a 3-level system of social distancing in the country due to a second flare-up of infections. Meanwhile, Iran has launched a campaign to motivate its rather reluctant public to use protective masks at all times.
People must observe health protocols to fight coronavirus, and that we have no second choice. No cure or vaccine for coronavirus has been found yet, so that we must observe the health protocols.
Australia has seen the biggest daily rise in COVID-19 cases in 2 months. The state of Victoria has recorded 75 cases of coronavirus in the past 24 hours, raising major concerns regarding a full-blown second wave.
In Pakistan, 49 more people have died from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to 4,167. The Health Ministry says more than 3,500 new cases were detected overnight, with the tally crossing 206,000. The ministry said more than 95,000 people have recovered, with nearly 2,500 are critical. The province of Sindh is worst hit by the virus, with over 80,000 infections. Punjab has reported nearly 75,000 cases. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there are nearly 26,000 infections, while there are over 10,000 cases in Balochistan. The capital city of Islamabad has reported nearly 13,000 cases, while Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan have nearly 2,500 cases. Yemen's human rights groups say the Houthi rebels have held over 20,000 people in hundreds of prisons across the country. In a presser, the Yemeni Coalition to Monitor Human Rights Violations said the country went through its worst humanitarian crisis during the past year. The group said Houthis' systematic violations are responsible for half of Yemen's problems. It said tens of thousands of people who had challenged the Houthis' rule were being held in secret and known jails. The coalition said the rebels recruited 7,000 children and was responsible for planting landmines that had killed 6,000 people. Yemen has been entangled in violence and chaos since 2014 after Houthis overran much of the country, including the capital, Sana'a. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has accused the Indian embassy in Kathmandu of being behind a plot to topple him. Addressing an event in Kathmandu, Oli said conspiracies are being hatched to ensure his removal after he released Nepal's new map. Prime Minister Oli, who is facing mounting criticism from within the ruling Communist Party and outside, said the Indian attempts to de-seat him won't succeed. This comes after Nepal issued a map that showed disputed area of Skalapani, Lipulak and Limpiyadura as Nepalese territory. New Delhi had earlier issued its revised map showing these areas as Indian territories. China says it will impose visa restrictions on US officials who behave egregiously in relation for Hong Kong affairs. In a press conference, Foreign Ministry spokesman urged the US to stop reviewing or implementing any Hong Kong-related acts. The move comes days after Washington announced similar restrictions on Chinese officials. The ministry said any effort by the US to hinder Beijing's introduction of a national security law in Hong Kong will not succeed. Last month, the country's top legislative body approved the national security bill that aims to tackle anti-national activities after months of protests last year. The legislation would make it a crime to undermine Beijing's authority in Hong Kong. US President Donald Trump has invited anger from the black community after retweeting a white supremacist video. The only black senator in the Republican Party, Tim Scott, called the act profanity-laced, offensive, and indefensible. The video on Twitter shows one of the Trump supporters in Florida shouting "white power" at protesters of his administration. It was later deleted from Trump's feed. Senator and former Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders said just when you think Trump cannot be more vile or racist, he outdoes himself. Meanwhile, Mississippi has voted to change the state flag, which includes a Confederate battle emblem that has been widely condemned as racist. In Poland, President Andrzej Duda takes lead in the first round of presidential election by getting about 46% of the vote. Exit polls show no candidate has achieved 50% of the vote needed for an all-out majority. Now, Duda will have to face Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski in a runoff on July the 12th. Trzaskowski received about 30.5% of the vote. Final results from the first round are expected to be released later in the week.
Dziękuję bardzo. Proszę Państwa,
Thank you very much. Thank you. The result is by far better than the one from 5 years ago and with 10 other candidates. Thank you very much for your support. But first and foremost, I would like to thank my compatriots for the turnout, for this massive participation in the election. I thank you with all my heart.
udział w wyborach. Z całego serca dziękuję.
In France, President Emmanuel Macron's ruling party has suffered a major defeat in second round of municipal elections. Exit polls say Macron's rival Europe Ecology Party has won in major cities including Lyon, Bordeaux, Strasbourg, Poitiers, Besançon and Marseille. This comes after first round of polling on March the 15th failed to produce a decisive outcome. French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe was also elected mayor of northern port city of Le Havre, in a rare bright spot for Macron as he lost ground. While in French capital Paris, Mayor Anne Hidalgo also declared victory in a re-election bid.
You have chosen hope. You have chosen to come together. You have chosen a Paris that breathes, a Paris that is more pleasant to live in, a city that is more united, that leaves no one aside.
At least 12 people have died and 10 others are missing due to heavy rains in China's southwestern province of Sichuan. The state media said the rainstorm has triggered floods in the province. The state media said 2 cars fell into the river in the Gaoyang region due to flood-damaged roads. It said rescue and relief efforts are underway. Nearly 10,000 people are in the disaster area, while over 7,700 local residents have been evacuated. In Bangladesh, 30 people have died after a ferry carrying some 50 passengers sank in a river following a collision with another vessel. Officials say dozens are still missing as rescue operations continue in the Buriganga River, which flows past the outskirts of the capital Dhaka. The vessel was hit at a Farashganj area near the country's largest river port of Sadarghat. Eyewitnesses say some of the passengers managed to swim to the land. In the Philippines, 14 people are missing after a fishing boat collided with a Hong Kong cargo vessel in choppy waters of the western coast of Mamburao. Officials say the Philippine Coast Guard is searching for the missing people, but bad weather is impeding rescue efforts. The Coast Guard said the cause of the collision is not yet clear. It said a light plane and a helicopter have joined the Coast Guard ship in the search. Officials said the fishing boat was headed for metropolitan Manila when the collision happened. The damaged boat was spotted hours later, but there was no sign of the crew. The Hong Kong-flagged cargo vessel with 20 crew on board was not carrying any cargo at the time of the collision and was en route to Australia. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The UK's think tank Green Alliance says an extra £14 billion required each year to help London meet its climate commitments. In its report, the Environment-Based Policy Institute says the cash is needed for clean transport, nature restoration and low-carbon buildings. It said over the past 3 years, £9 billion have been spent on projects that actually increase carbon dioxide. The report said the government plans to spend £28 billion on roads, which will increase CO2 emissions. It said the funding issue must be solved in the Prime Minister's economic recovery speech, which is expected on Tuesday. In Spain, tourists are opting for inland holidays to avoid crowded beaches and cities after the country eased COVID-19 lockdown. More in this report.
The COVID-19 pandemic hit Spain harder than most countries, with more than 28,000 deaths so far, and a 3-month lockdown that crippled the tourism sector that accounts for 12% of the economy and employs 1 in 8. As the country's holiday industry struggles to recover, Spanish holidaymakers are heading to the hills rather than going abroad.
Regarding the international impact, we have noticed much less foreign tourism to the area because the borders are closed. So the inland tourism is being strengthened. Before, people traveled to Rome, Berlin or Paris, but currently we are going back. They are opening other options and discovering inland tourism.
A campsite owner is banking on tourists abandoning crowded beaches in favor of rural peace and quiet.
We are at the Ronda range of mountains among 3 natural parks: the Grazalema Mountain, Sierra de las Nieves, and the Park of Los Alcornocales, an amazing and privileged enclave. We are also very close to Gibraltar, to Costa del Sol. So this is an option now with the issue of coronavirus. We have benefited by tourism compared with that of the hotels.
Though Spain has reopened its border to European tourists, the summer season is only tentatively resuming.
US-based car manufacturer Tesla says it has stopped receiving federal tax subsidies. In a tweet, CEO Elon Musk said the company receives the least subsidies of any automaker in the United States. Musk said the federal tax credit applies to other automaker EVs, but no longer to Tesla. In a survey conducted by consumer intelligence company, Tesla's cars have been ranked the worst in quality. It said Tesla, which is viewed as a leader in the automotive industry, performed the worst among 32 brands. Meanwhile, Tesla earned record high sales of its models manufactured in China in May. European stock markets are trading mixed as investors continue to digest a rise in COVID-19 debt toll. Investors are fearing second round of lockdown restrictions as stocks register muted rally. Frankfurt's DAX is trading fractionally higher. CAC 40 in Paris has lost a fraction, while London's FTSE 100 is trading flat. In Asia, Nikkei 225 led the gains, closing over 2% lower as fast retailing and conglomerate SoftBank Group stocks dropped over 2% each. Seoul's Kospi Index lost about 2%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng closed over 1% lower. Shanghai Composite lost over 0.5%. Meanwhile, international benchmark Brent crude oil price has lost over 1%. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.